start recording. And hopefully that will not crush the same laptop that I'm going to be using for presentation purposes as well. Okay, so I'm wondering why my screens, when I do my presentation, don't give me a presenter view, but that's okay. So, welcome. So this is our first meeting for 2018 for the Raleigh-Durham Power BI user group. Welcome. Yep, and I think I saw someone else just come in. This is our new logo, and that is our new Twitter account. We also are trying to use that for our hashtags. So if you see, comment, want to share anything, please use those. How's it going? This slide deck will be made available shortly. It is not currently available, actually, on the Meetup group, but we will be sharing this same content out there. So because this is our first meeting, we're going to be discussing some things that we probably will not be doing in subsequent meetings, which is just basically filling you guys in on our intended format and the type of content that you guys are going to want to see in the upcoming meetings. So first we're going to talk about who we are, who's putting this on, who are these people running this group, introductions with Josiah and myself. Then we're going to talk about the meeting format. This might be a little bit different than some of the other meetups that you guys have gone to, other technical meetings. And finally, at the end, if I haven't entirely run out of gas, I'm going to give you a quick presentation on row-level security. So we are actually going to get around to talk about something to do with Power BI at the end there. So who we are. This is a user group associated with the website that you've probably seen that links from the Power BI service website, the forums, and the groups, the community. This is one of those formal meetup groups for the Raleigh area. It's free. It is not for profit. So Josiah and myself, we are volunteers. We're here to help. Microsoft is our location sponsor. There's no charge for that as well. They're just doing this out of the goodness of Microsoft's heart. So of course, it does help promote this little thing we're calling Power BI. So kind of a little reward there. But so there's no charge. Food is free, attendance is free, all the resources are free. As such, please be respectful. I'm on the hook for all this, so I'm the Microsoft employee sponsor here. So please make sure we leave things nicely. If there's anything wrong, please let me know and I'll make sure it's right. For those who have not visited this office before, if you need to break in the middle of this meeting, the way to get to the bathroom is you run those doors and you keep looping across the back of the hall and then up the following side, way up there before you get to the next door that you won't be able to get through. On the left, there's a men's room and a ladies' room and a water fountain if you need any of those things. Hopefully for refreshment, we'll be able to have the pizza and soda here soon. So you guys will be able to take part in that. Also, for those who joined a little bit late, we are recording this. In the future, I'm going to offer this as a Skype meeting, so you'll be able to join remotely. Introductions. So, who am I? I am Wes Springob. I'm a Premier Field Engineer, a PFE, you may have heard of us. So basically, I go all across the country sharing information about SQL Server, BI, analytics, reporting services, SSIS, SSAS, Power BI as well, and we give presentations. And hopefully most of it is proactive work. So we're helping out our customers before there's problems. But occasionally I come in and try to help you fix some things. One of my teammates is here with us also this evening, Sam Mazal. He's also a Premier Field Engineer with SQL Server. He just so happened to be in town and said he would come heckle me a little bit here this evening. I am here, my purpose in this is not actually my job to do these kinds of meetings. Usually it's with our premier customers. My purpose though is a little bit selfish. I just moved to Raleigh recently, and as I mentioned, I do fly around the country all the time to all of our different customers. But I know, based on this turnout, that we have some customers right here in my new neighborhood that want to use this technology, and I would like to not get on a plane every week. So I'm hoping as a result of this that I'll be able to help some of you guys out. So that's my motivation for doing this. For those who would like to get in touch with me later on, as you may have noticed, I have an unusual last name. I know you all look at Springob and you see SpongeBob. I know, I get it all the time. So as a result, I've made it a little bit easier on you. SQLWes@Microsoft.com. Send me an email just to have me in your contacts list. I'd be happy to get back with you if you have questions. Also, something else that I'm doing sort of as a general service to the community. I'm running a study group for anyone who would like to try to take and pass the certification exam 70778. Who knows what that is? Anybody taking it? You've taken it?
No, I'm taking it next month.
Okay. Anybody else interested in that? It is the Power BI certification from Microsoft. So I took it, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. There's a testing center right down this main street here. I think it's Chapel Hill, not too far from here. Do you guys do certifications? Do you like them? See value in them? Have some? No?
I used to.
Okay. If anyone's interested, send me an email. I will be happy to include you on that Skype conversation as well. So now, fortunately, Josiah, you're up for introductions.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm Josiah Foss, and I started this group probably a year and a half ago, and then kind of tapered off. I had some work things that sort of precluded me from keeping it running for a few months there. But definitely something I was interested in doing, and it seemed like there was community support. So Wes came along at kind of a very fortuitous time, and was just kind of the right jump start right now. So here we are.
Great.
I currently work for Midtown Consulting, which is an Atlanta-based firm. Do a lot of Power BI and Tableau, data management type stuff. So that's me.
Great. Thank you. All right. So the meeting format, what we're kind of kicking around here this evening is what's going to be of value to you guys as the Power BI community in Raleigh. I've adopted this format from what I've seen, from what other folks and user groups where I'm from in Florida have taken on. It sort of follows this meeting progression. We start off talking about group business, anything that pertains to the location, the schedule, the time, anything that you guys are concerned with, something that you might want to have covered. We'll start off there. We'll talk about the larger community. So I don't know if you were aware of this. If everyone found us on Meetup, that group that Josiah formed a year and a half ago is actually a formal organization, the PUG. And that community has several events and some support within itself. So we'll talk about the community a little bit. We'll cover any announcements. So anyone here who has anything that they would like to let the rest of the group know, related technologies, if you're looking for people, or if you're a people looking for a job in your organizations, we can share and network across on those types of concerns. Then we're gonna have a little thing that I'm gonna call Who You Are, or the Meetup Report. So I actually made a Power BI report about this meeting based on the data that we can gather from Meetup. So there's data everywhere, and we want to report on it. So I'm using some of that to sort of loop back on ourselves to have some insight about what's going on among our members. Then we're going to talk about the new features. Who is aware of the update schedule for Power BI Desktop? Every single stinking month, there's a new one, right? Yeah. How many folks are taking the automatic updates now through the store? Sick of getting that little pop-up window in the bottom right-hand corner of your window every time you open up Power BI, right? Who's not familiar with that option? So in Windows 10, you can now take a free update if you install the desktop tool from the store. It will automatically push out those monthly updates. So you don't have to go back out to the site, download the files, install the newer version for January, February, March. It will automatically push those out to you. So with every month, we get those new features on top of it. So we're going to cover a highlight. This month, I don't know if you guys noticed, on the Power BI blog site, the video to cover this is 39 minutes just on the new features. There's quite a few out there. Not every month has quite that many, but I think that's a good point to center our conversation around, is keeping current with the tool, what's new for this month. And then my thought was, with those new features, anyone who's been anticipating one of those coming along, as the new features are released, you guys could share how you've been using them. So for instance, if I had this meetup in place and we had this conversation already last month, we would take a look at the list and would say, okay, who wants to talk about that topic? And if anyone does, you could come up and you could present a brief description and give a demo on what you've worked with it. Do we have any speakers? Anyone? Anyone?
I obviously talk. So.
Pardon?
I obviously talk. I haven't stopped talking.
That's okay. So I would like to give my little sales pitch around speaking. My boss, about 4 years ago, came into the company that I was working for. He had joined after me, and he said, you want to advance your career, you're going to go talk. You're going to go to one of these meetup groups and you're going to present on something. I said, all those people are so smart. They're so technical. They know way more than I do. Well, that wasn't actually the case, but that was my perception of it. Since then, we have both gotten out of that rotten company and are now working here. So it is a good path. Being able to speak professionally, even if it's just for a few minutes, can really add another dimension to what you can bring to the table for an employer. So very non-threatening, just a handful of folks here that you could present to, but whatever you're working on in Power BI, there's a million different stories out there on how folks are using this technology. So you can sort of get your feet wet by presenting 5-10 minute lightning talk on something that you're working on. So I'd encourage you to think about that. Yes?
Does your presence here indicate that this office is now a Power BI centric in addition to a Team Foundation Service TFS centric?
I'm an anomaly. I just so happened to decide I wanted to move here. I told my boss after I did. It has no correlation with the bigger Microsoft initiatives.
No TFS tie-ins or anything like that?
To me, no. This is, Wes said he wanted to go move to Raleigh, so he did, and that's allowable in my job. But, like I said, I want to help you guys out with this, and I'm excited about this technology. In Tampa, where I'm from, there's a lot of SQL talk. There's some Power BI talk. The fact that we got all of you guys here really shows that this is a little different story, and I'm happy about it because the possibility of not having to get on a plane to go do my job and maybe help you guys out would be tremendous for me. So don't try to read any more into it. It's just a volunteer thing. After we go through the new features, we're going to take any of your questions. So I hope you guys all brought problems that you're having with Power BI, questions, things you can't solve. And my thought is we could do sort of a collaborative workshop, maybe work through some of those issues that you might be having. So if you've got something like that, send me your PBX if you can. I know not everybody can share out what they're working on, but we can work through those things together and collaborate and sort of see how other folks have solved similar problems, because of course there's a lot of different ways to skin that cat when we talk about creating reports. And then finally, depending on how much we have on the lightning talk side and how much we have on the workshop side, and how well Josiah and myself have done on the next piece, we might have a speaker. So at this point, we have one speaker, one of my other teammates, who's from down in Charlotte, is going to come up, I think he said June. He booked us for it. So you may have noticed we have, between now and June, every third Tuesday, we are scheduled to meet at this time in this place. So anyone who would like to speak on a Power BI related topic, who you might know, who's available, we would greatly appreciate it. We're going to continue to work on that to bring in some other folks. I have some national presence or recognize some national folks who I might be able to sway to come over to talk to us. But when that's not the case, we're still going to have a lot to talk about with the new features and with the workshop and the collaboration sections.
How locked in are you on third Tuesdays?
How locked in am I? So much so that, are we? So much so that I have built my calendar. So I get on a plane almost every week. So it takes a little bit of planning on my part in order to make sure I'm in this town on this Tuesday or on a Tuesday evening. So I've kind of collaborated between me and this office. So this space is also used at other times. And between that schedule that I have and between what's available for this room, over the next several months, I wanted to give something consecutive. But I stopped in June because I needed to get some feedback from you guys.
My feedback is that third Tuesdays are a data analytics.
Yes.
The night of a data analytics meetup. I will speak more of that when it's my turn to speak.
Okay. You're waiting for that announcement section to come around, aren't you? Or,
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, and we can certainly talk about that. I am open to that going forward. I know it doesn't always work for everyone. The one thing that those guys in Tampa taught me was consistency matters. And picking a day and sticking to it. I've already experienced some user groups that I'm a member of here already. They'll meet on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a weekend, a weeknight, a day, middle of the day, and it's not consistent. If that works, if that's what you guys are into, we can talk about that as well. This was just my doing. So, group business. So these are some of the topics, some of the things we're concerned about, making sure that this group goes forward. We need speakers. I already kind of talked about that a little bit. If you know anyone, please let us know. Sponsors, the other part of this. There are some costs to this. So we're hoping, of course, to get a food sponsor and a meetup sponsor because meetup isn't free. It's not very expensive, but it's not free. So if anyone knows any organizations, usually consulting or recruiting firms, sometimes other businesses like to support these types of events, please let us know about that as well. Also, we're going to need some volunteers. I am both host tonight and speaker, and I can't do it all. And Josiah has a day job also, and he can't do it all. So if you would like to help us out with things like running our YouTube recordings and managing, keeping that content out there and keeping it current, that would be helpful. Also, any type of setup or cleanup that we need to do, I appreciate your assistance on that. We do have a Twitter account for the group, RDUPUG, as well as the hashtag that we've been trying to use on any of our social media so people can find us. With that, our next meeting will be on March 20th, same time, same location, in this office. At this point, without a speaker, we're looking at workshop content and lightning talks. So we'll talk about that a little bit when we take a look at the updates for Power BI for this month. And I will also send out a follow-up email between now and that date once the March updates are published out to the Power BI site. Our next section is the community. So who is aware of the Power BI user group community outside of Meetup? Okay, a couple folks. Can you talk a little bit about that, Josiah? Because I haven't had a lot of success right now with that. Or do you have trouble with the site?
It's getting better.
Okay.
About a
Can
year
you stand
ago,
between
it
the
was a little
speakers?
bit lacking.
Can you stand between the speakers so that the video can
Absolutely. So probably about a year ago, it was a little bit lacking, and they brought some new leadership on board that have really kind of got things taking off in a good direction with that. So that's encouraging. It's a good space. It has kind of all the functionality that you need to do most things, although just for kind of like the public side of it, the meetup does work a little bit better. So I'd encourage you to go out to powerbi.com and look on the community link for the user group section and search for our Raleigh-Durham user group and just get in there and be signed up there as well. We'll try to kind of replicate the content in both places and the announcements. And there's, obviously, similar to other technologies, there's opportunity to engage with other users and community members globally there. So some good avenues to start exploring a little bit.
Cool. Are you familiar at all with the Data Summit or the Focus? I know the Data Summit is happening because I saw an
For
invitation.
data analytics
In Dublin. The one in Dublin? The global one?
I have looked at the website, but other than that, no.
Okay. And then the Focus one is in Illinois? Is that?
I don't remember.
I saw that. So these are ones that I saw on the Power BI user group website. I have not signed up to attend any of these, so I was hoping, or I was thinking maybe, like I don't know if you guys are familiar with the SQL world of PAS for SQL Server. So that organization will have a summit, and meeting groups like this, they'll get like discount codes or things like that if you would want to attend. Anyone free in May that wants to go to Illinois?
I read better iron.
Indiana?
Oh, I'm sorry, Indianapolis.
You're gonna send us to the wrong state?
I was gonna say in the wrong place, and then I'd be there with you. So no. So if you're not free to go to Indiana in May, you're probably not going to attend. We'll keep an eye on that sort of thing for you and let you know. Sometimes they have associated broadcasts that go with the keynote speakers, things like that.
The other thing I will say here is, while it's not scheduled or publicized yet, I was talking to a couple folks, and there is going to be a Data Insights conference this year. So probably Seattle, so just be watching for that online if that's of interest.
All right, now's the time. Announcements. Yes.
I'm gonna write it down.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we got some whiteboard space down there. March 10th.
So
Okay.
there's a data analytics conference, local data analytics conference called Analytics Forward. It's happening in Durham at Blue Cross and Blue Shield, on the Blue Cross and Blue Shield campus. Registration opened up a few weeks ago. It's $10 for the entire day, includes food, that kind of stuff.
And what?
And pie.
Oh, you get pie.
And pie, yes. I'm thinking about bringing ice cream this year because nobody brings the ice cream. In addition to that, I'm a software instructor. I'm a senior software instructor, and I am preparing people, anybody who wants to get prepared to do presentations. I will help you on March 5th at the Western Wake County Library. And that's all on the RTP Research Triangle Analyst.
RTP analyst.
This is RTP Analyst, thank you.
Yes, sir.
RTP meetup.
So March 10th, is that a Saturday?
March 10th is a Saturday. It's an all-day thing. It's an unconference, so we pitch our presentations at 8 o'clock, and the voting commences after the pitches, and then they tally up and order things appropriately. So my session on March 5th, which is a Monday, is listed here, as well as the link to register, or you get prompted to pay when you.
Okay, so if I want to attend yours, or if I want to just go
Mine's
to
free.
March, either one, this is my place to go for the meetup. Is the
Right.
RTP.
And the room that I'm in is limited to 30 people, so
Okay.
that kind of stuff. I will strongly recommend that you come in, the both of you come and pitch a Power BI /R session.
Very popular with analysts, I'm sure.
It's very popular, and if you include an R demo or two in the in the process of doing your pitch and your session, you will get votes.
Okay.
March 10, analytics forward, my session for session prep. Chuck,
You got it all. I think you pretty much got it all.
thank you. I have some
helpers.
I have some colleagues, associates from other things there. I'm going to be leaving at the RTA monthly meeting is at 7 o'clock, so I'm going to scoot early.
Where is that? Where's
Tonight it's at SAS.
How far is that from here?
10 minutes.
Wow, I'm impressed. You're all not going to
Harrison,
leave, are you?
It's Harrison. It's Harrison Avenue.
Okay, not far.
I-40 in Harrison.
Okay, cool. So that actually makes me feel even better. Like we've got some folks who were interested in that as well, who actually came here for us. So I'm impressed and flattered that you guys came tonight, even though I missed that faux pas of the conflict. Any others? Any other announcements? Yes.
Okay. My name is Chris Matthews, and by day I run the analytics program at Wake County. But by night, I am a civic hacker. What that does is I'd like to do things for my community and improve them, and I don't like to go through the normal bureaucracy they have to go through as part of the government. On March 3rd and 4th, we are having a data jam around affordable housing, excuse me. And it is a 2-day event. We have the North Carolina Housing Finance Association, the Raleigh Area Land Equity Endeavor coming in, sharing their data with us. And we need analysts to come out and work on that data, create visualizations and models and some things to help those groups out with what they're trying to do with data. We also have a conference piece where we have John Corellis, the state chief data officer, is coming in to give a keynote. We have Ryan Thornburg from the UNC School, Reese Media Lab coming in and doing a 4-hour workshop on data journalism. The town of Cary is seeking feedback on their open data policy. So we have a whole bunch of things going on the whole day and the whole weekend. And it's free, and ncOpenPass.com is the way to get to it. And we'd love to see you guys out there. So
Great. How do I find the same place?
ncOpenPass.com.
Okay. PASS?
PASS.
NCOpenPass.com.
Yes.
Okay, and that's where we can sign up. And you said that was the 3rd of March?
3rd and 4th.
Okay, so Saturday and Sunday?
Yes.
If I'm doing my calendar math there?
The weekend before analytics forward.
Yeah, that's what I had the cheat sheet. You told me Saturday was the 10th, so I didn't have too far to go.
Shall we pause for?
Yeah, I was going to say, I see somebody got pizza from
Who is the
somewhere.
back end? Yeah, we can resume.
Yeah, let's do that. Guys, where is it set up?
It's right in the back hall here.
Cool.
That's what asked me to put it, so
Okay.
perhaps to the left.
Yeah. PASS.
I'm sorry.
So that's cool. We got some, I'm impressed that we got an analyst meeting tonight. This should directly conflict with us. Although maybe
That's
next
why
month, we won't have anybody to show up.
We'll sort that out.
Yeah. So I think maybe we'll do that while people are munching. We'll just sort of discuss the day and see if there's something that makes better sense at other times.
I've been happy to
Get pizza.
Oh, I'm sitting on me. Why are you up there, Mark? It's the Open Fest. Well, the thing is, I just got from John Carlos today on Monday, so
So have you been to the analysts?
things are late.
Great.
My inbox is starting to.
I went to the lunch
Yeah,
Yeah,
we did
all the
a
walk
lot
and
of
stuff.
better kickoff.
baby move.
Bunch of new people,
Okay.
so.
I don't know if you come down this
I don't
way.
come down this way much.
At a lunch, and I was like, it's close, I'm going.
Yeah.
I'm the analyst.
Where?
So, well, I don't know if that's where they normally do. This was just their sort of Friday lunch. I think they do that once a month. Is it, Mark, is that a regular occurrence?
The analyst lunch, yeah.
Okay, so they do that once a month as well, and that floats
That
around.
floats around, sometimes it's Chapel Hill, Morrisville, Cary. I think they've done one time in Raleigh.
Okay,
Daniel Siegel's machine learning, it's sometimes in the day and sometimes in the evening.
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so he does have both nighttime and daytime meetings at different times during the different days of the week too.
Okay. So it's not hard to get folks to show up to middle of the day stuff?
He's doing that out at the Frontier, which is a workspace.
Co-working space.
Oh, so you're drawing to people like right in the parking lot, basically? It's real.
Those that are working in RTP or students, and it's pretty, RTP is a real easy area to get to.
Okay, so even if you're not working down there, it works out well. Cool. All right, so while everyone's munching away, tell me a better day to do this.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
I know that we're conflicting a little bit with that analyst thing. I know that there's crossover there. Obviously, it's an analyst tool. But I also kind of get the feeling that that analyst is a little bit more on the technical side. We have R folks, data scientists, some more BI developer type folks. But are you guys report developers? Are you guys SQL developers? Are you, what's your, all of those things? Okay.
Nowadays, we want you to know everything.
You have to know it all, right? Okay.
I generally give advice to somebody who's setting up a new meetup is to try to go for the first week or the last week of a month, because everything is already packed in the middle 3 weeks,
Right. Yeah. That's not bad.
or the middle 2 weeks, yeah.
Okay.
And then just kind of go out to meet up and try to see, okay, where are people?
Location wise, I figured this was pretty nicely centered.
Oh, the location's great.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. So we could pull, who here is from, oh, actually, I'm gonna spoil it. Let me just go ahead and do it. This is the report about our meetup. So I actually can't resist. I saw data at meetup and nobody was doing anything with it. So I've got a little demo for you, and it's probably good to look at while we're talking about this. Switch over to, oh. This. Oh, my mouse. Okay. Clicker isn't responding. Okay. So, has anyone tapped into the API calls to Meetup before? I have. Yes. So this is what I know about you guys. So I was about to ask, where is everyone from? So let me zoom in on the map. So this, actually, we have to zoom out to include Greensboro, because that is, I didn't actually put the person's name there. Who's from Greensboro? The person from Greensboro didn't show up, it was too far. They didn't realize what they were signing up for. Okay. So we have folks from both Chapel Hill, right? Chapel Hill, Durham area, as far as, what's this? Snow Camp? Who's here from Snow Camp? No? No, keep in mind, this is a connection to our meetup group through the meetup API and what is stored in meetup for your location. So whatever city you put in, did you guys all enter that information on your profiles? Okay. So maybe Snow Camp is a little too far too. Anybody from Chapel Hill? Okay, so that's our Chapel Hill bubble. You represent this little yellow in here. But as far as getting to this place, comparative to Raleigh, because I'm a new guy. Remember, I'm new to the area. Is this relatively convenient for you?
No.
No? It's too far?
You have to drive I-40 from Chapel Hill to Raleigh at 8 or 5 any time. It's terrible.
8 in the morning or 5 in the evening,
Yeah,
that's terrible. Okay, that's interesting because we're considering, we haven't bought a home yet, and we're thinking about that. So Chapel Hill is just too far to even get this far, and we're not even into Raleigh here. This is still actually.
I mean, it's all relative, right? It's
right.
not, but for around here, that's the.
Okay. if I wanted to draw people from Durham or Raleigh, this is probably
Probably the best.
not
It's
bad.
not that bad, it's on this side of Raleigh.
Okay.
It's not like Los Angeles.
No. I mean, what are we talking about? Half hour, 45
Yeah,
minutes?
it's supposed to be
And
18 minutes, it was 40 minutes, so at that time of day.
Okay, so when you go home tonight, it's gonna take you 20 minutes to get home. Okay.
yeah, and so you potentially could mitigate the I-40 traffic by moving to 6:30 start time instead of 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock start time.
Okay,
That's something I had to do with one of my meetups.
okay. So the start time, this might have been a little early. I noticed folks were trickling in after the fact.
Well, you also might have folks like working RTP where, I mean, I just came right from work, so.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't wanna give you the opportunity to go home and
Right.
change your mind.
I'd stay at 6. I would.
Yeah.
Oh,
That way you
really?
cover both.
Most folks around here, you guys don't work like 24/7. You leave at 5 usually?
Or, okay.
4? All right.
Where do you work? I want to go there.
So what I started with was I took the meetup group and I used the API call in combination with the API key. As the meetup organizer, I have that key available to me. And then I did the request out to meetup and I got back not just the information about our members, but specifically those folks who RSVP'd for this evening. So right on the first page of this report, we have the map of all 50 of our current members. And off to the left, we have all the image links to our meetup images, of course, your name. I noticed nobody uses their Twitter account. I was one of, I think, only 2 or 3 other folks who actually put their Twitter in there. One person had their Facebook link, and then, of course, everyone has a link out to their meetup profile because it was meetup and you had to have one, right? So then I took all of those topics that you expressed interest in. When you joined meetup, you put all kinds of different things, whether you're interested in technology, data, and analytics. Not surprising there. We had 30 hits on that of all of our members, and then all of these others. So our word cloud represents the types of things that we're interested in. And it looks like data development, technology, analytics, business, all kind of applies here. So that's good.
So Bob, Wes, where did those words come from?
Those words came from, I started with your list of the folks who are members of this group. So you joined the group. Then we took from all of the members, we said, what are all they call them topics. Okay, so there are people topics, and then there are meetup group topics. Okay, so when you join and you said, what are the keywords? And if you put SQL in there, if you put something like that, that's what's going to show up here. So now I've got this information about our members. I took all of your member information and I pivoted that out. And I said, of each one of you, what are all of the groups that you all belong to? Because in my opinion, we're running this meetup group. That's competition to me. I want you coming here. I don't want you going to those ones. So I got to know what I got to match up with, right? So we are lowly. We only have 50 members right now. Who's a member of the Docker online meetup? I don't think we've got much competition there. That's an online meetup. There's no way that we're ever going to get 12,000 Power BI users in the Raleigh only area, right? But these are the locations for those, which I thought was kind of interesting. That Meetup has these online meetups, but they do meet regionally across the United States. Now, to be fair, we do have one member who signed up to this group, I think from Denmark. And I wasn't quite sure why. And so I noticed we also have a few other countries of folks who joined, and I started to suspect, because this was in person, either it was an error that they joined or it was for spamming purposes. And they were a member of a lot of other groups. So keep in mind, these are only our US members. So if I've offended anyone who was intending to come here from the UK or something else, I'm sorry about that. But these are the groups that all of the rest of you are members of. Okay? And then I took a look at the topics of those groups. And the topics range from things like business, development, technology, all the way down to beer, I think is one of them. I kind of latched onto that one. I noticed that in there somewhere. But other things, photography, gaming, things like that. So still, even when we consider the groups that you belong to, a lot of technology-based words that I'm seeing in there: networking, business, development. And then, of course, I included the links to those if I was curious about any of them. And then finally, I took all of your RSVPs and I made that sheet that you guys signed in on. So I plan on doing something similar to this at the beginning of the meetings, giving you guys additional insight. Also, I plan on making this a more permanent solution. The Meetup PBIX file that I'm creating, I'm going to make it generic so that any Meetup group will be able to use this if they justify their group ID and their authorization key, and they can put those two together and the Power BI report will run itself. Some of the challenges with creating this report was the first time I connected, I realized each grouping that I make that call for only brings back 200 of anything. Okay, so I'd have to do a paged call, and because I don't know how many rows of results I'm going to need, I need to iterate across my requests several times. You've done something similar?
There is a parameter on the call.
Yes.
That will bring back everything.
Yeah.
Oh, everything that meets everything that meets the dates. You don't have to page through, and it's like limit equals 0 or something like that.
Have you used the Meetup?
Yeah,
API for this?
the Meetup API.
Oh, you have? Okay.
With Python.
With what?
With Python.
So I don't know if that's a limit. Was that a pro user?
No.
Because I looked up the documentation on the Meetup site for their API calls, and the way they said it was there's the offset. That's what they call it. So the offset can be the page, and then the page size can be maximum of 200. And then I don't have to form a new request. I can put a 0, 1, 2, 3 in the offset, so I can make multiple requests. But you're saying that you've done it with just dates.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to have to look further for that one. I didn't see that option because it'd be a lot easier. Do they limit the number of requests you can make? Or because what if I had, like, what if I was the Docker Online group and I went in and I asked a similar question, bring me back 12,000 users? That JSON file would be gigantic.
Yeah, you can ask for and receive a pretty doggone large result.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to try that. I'd rather do that than have to write the Power BI automation to iterate across an unknown number of requests.
Right.
That'd be a lot easier. But it would be a learning experience, right? Because that's the type of thing, maybe you don't always get that option with an API call. Maybe you've got a different source that you would want to go to.
I cheat because if you go to the documentation, they've got an API help, and they will construct a call for you.
In that console.
In the console, that includes an API key, includes a key that works.
Right. Right. I use that, and actually part of the response, the cool thing, the response that you get back from that request is the very response that you've done. So if you need to reconstruct it, you can go back from scratch and reconstruct the query that you just posted to them. So I'm going to be playing a little bit more with that. I'm going to make this report a little bit more interesting than this first one. So next week, keep in mind what I can derive here, right? I know where you're from, so I know how far you've traveled. I know when you RSVP'd. I know this is a little small, so I've got the date and time. Did anyone notice the order that I used as you signed in? Top to bottom is when the first date is at the top, and I am honestly impressed. So who is John Mansfield? John Mansfield? And John Thomas, did you have some sort of automation set?
I just happened to be there when it popped in.
Because look at me. I have the exact same timestamp as you do, and I created this particular meeting. So I'm impressed with that. So I'm going to write a metric or a KPI off of our users, something to impress and to entice you guys to become better participants. So in this one, it is first RSVP gets a Power BI fidget spinner.
Oh, wow. You're all jealous of that.
On eBay in exactly 1 hour.
Kid, I got grandkids. This is gonna be.
There you go. So the idea is, think about the stuff that I'm going to ask you to do. Let's make this thing more robust. The first one is, you noticed on the sign-in sheet, I understand sometimes folks would prefer to be somewhat anonymous on websites. But for our purposes, the Microsoft Office that we're meeting in here does request your first and your last name. Okay? So one of the qualifiers for winning next month's store prize will be something like, you must have your full name included or shared with me. So if you don't want to put it on Meetup, I get that. Send it to me so that I can tie in your account and I can create the RSVP list. RSVPing early and accurately will be something that we might measure. 1 week we might say furthest traveled, although that's going to be hard to give it to you 2 weeks in a row. We do have a member in Atlanta. So if Greensboro or Atlanta come, they're going to put you to shame. And also I noticed, who is John Thomas? Okay, so John Thomas didn't show up, so I didn't have to break the tie there. It was me, you, and John Thomas that had a tie for the earliest response. Excuse me. So
just curious, who's our Atlanta member?
I haven't exposed the personal information here.
Okay.
It's just summary on the map,
Okay.
but I could show you that if we really want to.
I'll do it later.
We'll do it later, yeah. To see. So keep in mind, everything that I've shown here, like I haven't done anything, this is all publicly available. Okay, so I would never try to expose anything, but I also don't want to embarrass anyone by calling that out. So who is the earliest? Who has maybe a few meetings down the line? We'll say who has attended the most consecutive meetings. Who has the most complete profile? And maybe we can weigh that off your Twitter, your Facebook information. Maybe, who knows, I'll go after those API calls and see if I can pivot out even further and do some more investigating about our group. So all of these things we're going to try to put together and keep this engaging and have a conversation about it. So does anyone use those type of metrics in the work that they do? Writing the measures and KPIs. What do you guys work on? What are your interests, or what are the challenges that you have with Power BI or with any analysis? None? You guys all have it all mastered? It's all just working smoothly for you? No?
It's not the Power BI, for us, it's definitely the entrenchment of the standard way of doing things. A visualization tool just really doesn't make a lot of sense to some people. It's a lot of education and evangelism.
Haven't thought in those terms before. Didn't know it was available.
Yeah.
That comes up a lot. I don't know what I want until I can see what I can get.
Yeah.
And a lot, we're doing a huge thing for a new land development system for planning and permitting. And everyone's idea of reporting is crystal reports.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they've been told crystal reports are.
You doing Interco?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are too. We're using Power BI too.
But our project management, our people, they're expecting operational reports. They're expecting something they can hand off to someone they've done an inspection for and leave. They're not looking for things to help them run their business. So when I start showing them these type of things, they're very impressed, but it's almost like they don't.
Yeah.
It's shock.
I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know this was possible.
I didn't know this was available, type of thing. So
cool. So yeah, it takes a little bit of creativity sometimes to sort of get things jump started. But once you start sharing this information, then the wheels really start to flow and it starts to pick up momentum. So this is a little section. This is a work in progress that I'm putting together here. But expect to see this in the future meetings. We'll go back and we'll revisit the additional things that I've been able to learn. All right, so enough with my little Power BI demo. Who's familiar with this list? Does this look familiar? Do you guys go out and check out the blog site for the latest features each month? Okay, so these are the list, and this actually goes to page 2 here. This month was rather impressive. The video for this that they've recorded, that the Microsoft development team recorded, is 39 minutes long. That's quite a bit of content to cover all of these. So, has anyone voted up any of these requests in the forums? Were you guys asking? So which one were you asking for, Chris?
I've done some of the custom visuals, and I know one of the ones was about being able to do the download from the App Store.
The App Store?
From the App Store.
Okay, tell me about what your
Well,
concern was there.
instead of having to download the Power BI desktop every month, being able to
Oh,
get it through the regular.
The automation. Okay, so I think that actually was a couple months ago.
Yeah, that was.
We have some more custom visuals this time. So you didn't have App Store access, and you didn't for like the custom visuals as well as the desktop tool for the automatic refresh. Okay.
So we have a few people that have, we're still not completely on Windows 10, so.
And that's one of the requirements, that you're going to have Windows 10 to support it. Okay. So, anything look interesting to anyone there? Does that solve any problems that you've had with Power BI? The multi-select, one that I think, in fact, I was talking with Sam about this one before the meeting, is the ability to sync slicers across pages.
Yeah, that was a nice improvement.
Okay, so did you have a particular use case that you were trying to solve? I mean, I can imagine a million of them, but was there something?
It's just when I've had a couple of reports that, span several pages, and it's annoying to have to put a slicer on every single page.
And tell the user to go adjust that slicer. Okay, so that's good.
Can I ask you,
Sure.
so what's a date table? Anybody use date table?
I'm sorry, which?
Mark custom date table.
Oh,
Anybody use this one?
you have?
Well, I mean, almost every report has a date table. It seems like you have to have one.
Right, well, for time analysis,
Yes.
if you do anything like that. So do you have a date dimension table in your
Well, I have dates
model?
inside of my tables. Do I have to create like separate table with data?
In data warehouse?
And some people will use this as an analysis tool, that you might not have a data warehouse that you connect to.
No, we have an old crystal report server, so we're getting reports, but we cannot connect directly, so we're using Excel files, outputting directly in the folder.
So that's a real common case with folks who use Excel as their data source. So the idea is in a data warehouse, to help us doing our time intelligence questions, we'll have a separate table that includes all kinds of information. So by default, our data types give us year, day, month, quarter hierarchy, right? And we have DAX functions that will allow us to perform analysis on data types. So if I want to say date add, last month's date, I could do a date add from today's date. Increment is the month, and then the function or the measure is back 1 month would be -1, right? And that would tell me last month's date. Well, sometimes we need to ask more complex things. Something like a year-over-year calculation,
But it's
or a
included
period
like
over
a
period.
function now.
Pardon?
I think it's included in functions, like you can get like a calculation, say over year.
Yes. So there are functions to support that, but we can ask other questions. So there's a year-over-year, month-to-month, same period last year. But what if I wanted to know what performance was like on a Tuesday? Okay. Inherently, I could look at a data type, and I could say, okay, is this particular day for every row in my data a Tuesday? And I could write a DAX formula for that. Or I could make it a simple join to a table, another date table, and that date table would join with my transactional data or even dimensional data that would have a date in it. And then I could do an analysis on the column that says day of the week. So it's pre-calculated for me, and I could say where it's Tuesday. And that grouping or that slicing would be far simpler. So the date table will have things like, what's the name of the month? What's the number of the month? Do you ever have trouble sorting your dates when you want to present on an axis, say you have January, February, and March?
Not that far.
Okay, okay. So that's a real common modeling challenge.
Or things like, I want to see just the current day or the current month or year to date when your date is not in the current, it's beyond just the current year. There's a guy, Avi Singh, I don't know if you've seen him online, but he's got one that's called the Ultimate Calendar Table, and you can download the file for free. Just put it into your PBX file every
Oh,
time.
yeah. What's the name?
AVISINGH.
Oh, I will ask you after.
Okay.
Okay.
But he's got a YouTube channel that does Power BI,
Okay.
and but he has an ultimate calendar table that you can download, and it's like when he in his video he just says every file SINGH.
SINGH.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he
So
just-
he's got now is it a file or is it a script?
It's a table. It's an actual table that you can put into
What's the
your.
name of a guy so I can look at the?
Avi, A-V-I,
I would say his name.
S-I-N-G-H.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so there's a lot of those. I have a SQL script that will automatically populate a table in a SQL server that will do something similar. Do you ever use calendar year? So,
Well, I came from Tableau and Click, so I spent like so many years. Now I'm learning Power BI. So.
okay. Do you have a offset? Is your organizational calendar, does it start on January 1st, or do you have a different fiscal year versus calendar?
I'm not that far. I'm just,
Okay, okay.
We have to do fiscal years, so we end up having to put it in everything if we didn't use the date table.
So you have the date table to solve that. That's another
We
common.
don't actually, we write it in every one, but we should be using a date table.
Oh, so you store it along with your transactional data, the year,
We convert everything to fiscal year.
as it goes in. Okay, so that's probably a challenge on your ETL side to make all that a reality. Makes it a little bit more difficult. So these are what I was envisioning are our candidates for next month's lightning talks. Is someone who's looked at this list and said, all these new features, I've been waiting for that to come along, and now I'm going to use it. And then somebody could present or show a little demonstration about how they've used it. So I'm not expecting you guys tonight to pick these up and say, I want to do a presentation on that. But look at this list. It's published on the forums of the Power BI service website, and see if there's anything new that's interesting to you. Also, I'm going to publish this same list from next month out there and see if I can entice a couple of folks to maybe show us what you're doing with the tool. So that's the new features. So for our next meeting, what would you guys like to hear somebody stand up here and talk about? Y'all showed up tonight for me to talk about row level security, right? We're going to talk about that next. But give me an idea, so when I go out to all the speakers that I know and I ask somebody to show up, Sajas is the fellow on my team who's going to be coming in a couple months. And he asked me, what do you want me to present on? That's a pretty nice option. Imagine you have the ability to pick that. What would you tell me to answer Sajas with? What would you like to see?
I apologize if this is outside of the Power BI. I'm not a beat up person until tonight, but prior to Power BI, I was in Excel all the time, and you have a question of how to come up, I can't come up with this formula. You type it into Google, and within 2 websites, you have the exact answer that you need of the formula that you needed to do. Power BI, it just doesn't seem, the database isn't out there yet in Google to type in, how do I use a measure as a slicer or something like that,
Okay.
So you search it in Google, but it doesn't, there's just not enough information out there. So are there ways that people come up with?
So there's Google? Oh, that's like Bing, isn't it? I'm teasing, I'm sorry. So actually.
You can actually get some, anyway.
I hear you, I'm just teasing. So you're saying you are searching for the answer for how do I,
whether it's DAX or Power BI or whatever, it's Power Query.
And I didn't actually even restart my my presentation, my slide deck here. I'm sorry. I didn't realize I had all the slides off to the side there. So at the tail end of this guy, this last one, additional resources. Okay, so there is an abundance of documentation for you. So you're talking about formulas, right?
Yeah.
So DAX formulas, we have a reference, and I did not include that on here, but it will be on the Power BI service website. There will be links to it. There are a series of getting started with DAX. I think there's like 10 or 12 short videos of the basics. How do I do time intelligence? How do I do string manipulation? And there's just like little 2-minute, 5-minute videos on here's how you do something. Also, the DAX language itself has its own reference. So there's an entire Microsoft documentation site for that. Now, it's documentation. It's not the, I want to solve this problem, go use this function. The problem with that, though, is there's probably 10 or 15 different ways you could form that same formula. If it's even moderately complex, different ways to structure it. The thing about that, though, is some of them are going to be more efficient than others. The guy who knows that is Marco Russo. You guys familiar with Marco? Okay, so I'll actually include that as well in this slide deck before I publish it out there. He does DAX performance. He has tools. There's a lot of information and the how-tos, so how to pick the best one. Also, the forums, the questions, you're allowed to pose them if you want to propose new features of the tool. If you want to see your new thing asked on this list in the coming months, if you want to see something up there, you can propose those, and then you can come to a group like this and say, hey guys, vote up, give us a +1 on this because we really need it, and we can help support you on that. But these are some of those additional resources. Also, if you're looking for training and you're cheap like me, I just did this one. There's an edX course on Power BI, and I don't expect you to write that down, but you can pick that up from the link. It's pretty comprehensive, Chris.
And next Thursday, dashboard in a day.
Okay.
Here.
Yeah, I've been seeing some of those. Is that a Microsoft or a partner event?
Pragmatic Works is running it.
Pragmatic. Okay.
So yeah.
Cool.
I mean, everything I've heard about that particular workshop seems like amazing. So.
Yeah, I ran into a lot of Pragmatic Works guys because I was in Florida and most of them were out of Jacksonville. In fact, I've known some of them and worked with them. Those are real smart guys too. They're offering, so they're not charging anything for it. It's pretty nice. They're really big on education. So
I've attended one and it's definitely worth it. I mean,
yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's really impressive for the type of organization. They are really dedicated to helping the community and getting people up to speed. So that's a good one. What day is that?
Next Thursday, March 1st.
You think a guy at Microsoft, a Microsoft event, I would know about this, but I'm not going to even be anywhere near here next Thursday. So maybe I can use that as an excuse. Awesome.
And there's another one out there, Vaticad.
I'm sorry?
Vaticad, they're out of, I think, either New Zealand or Australia.
Okay.
They do a bunch of good Power BI stuff, and it's also their chief data person is also big into R, so she's done a lot of the R integrations.
Okay.
So she will actually do things where she's actually doing predictive models and running that through a process and putting that into a visualization. So
cool.
Using R on the SQL Server and copying that into.
So I know you had your hand raised when I called on David first. I'm sorry.
Yes. Significant other who couldn't be here tonight wanted me to ask a question
Okay.
of how to implement Power BI, get it in through the business's doors to actually get it up and running and drive adoption.
Okay.
Success stories, failure stories.
Yes.
How to do it, what will it cost? How do you protect HIPAA information?
Okay. So, significant others occupation, I'm guessing is something to do with medical when I hear HIPAA.
Yes.
Okay. One thing that I have learned is that there are some things that are HIPAA compliant. So we have HIPAA compliance for security level, but not necessarily HIPAA adopted, so to speak, okay? So I'm guessing the concern with HIPAA is publishing the content out to the Power BI service.
I think it's just a healthy dose of paranoia.
Sure.
It's more on the financial side and wanting to keep it on premise as opposed to hosting it in the cloud,
All right.
an external site.
So without going
I can do
10 miles deep on that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was kind of similar, but with more like different information of HIPAA. So what we do, we actually post, so I don't know, do you using SharePoint?
Yes.
So we actually embedding our dashboards in SharePoint and share only with specific group what you sharing with.
So do you have an O365
Yeah.
or SharePoint Online, I should say? Okay. So part of that, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with those things, SharePoint Online is still a hosted service. So there's a lot of question around exactly where you're going to share the data. So you might have a presentation layer that has web exposure, but as long as the data is on premise. So maybe you have an analysis services instance of a tabular model down there, or you have a SQL Server engine for your data. So it always lives in your data center. It doesn't actually get published out to the service, but the report itself lives in the service and then is accessed through the browser. But every request goes back down on premise for your data. Another solution is reporting services. So if you have SSRS, you can publish Power BI reports on premise, so the data never has to leave the confines of your data center. Okay. Now, like I said, we could go 10 miles deep on that topic. So there's all kinds of complexities. I hear security concerns in there. I hear access. All of those possibilities to solve that problem. I could try to get somebody that could talk more about that. And you also mentioned sort of success stories and other companies. Tell me about the size or its medical background. Is it a hospital or is it a
LabCorp.
Oh, for LabCorp. Okay. So.
Fortune 100.
Kind of a big thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had LabCorp in Pennsylvania and Florida and up here. I'm very familiar. They're all over. So the adoption, the success story is I don't have to show you my HIPAA compliance to show you my tool for free. Go download desktop. Go play with it all you want. Your data doesn't have to leave just to learn the capabilities of the tool. When it comes time to publish this thing out and deploy it to the enterprise, either internally or if you want to expose this data to the public, we have the on-prem and the service. The on-prem solution for reporting services for most organizations is no additional cost. If you already have SQL Server and software assurance, you have the permission to use reporting services on-premise on your Windows server. Of course, you do have to license the Windows machine, the Windows server for that. And of course, you also have to have a SQL Server instance somewhere in your organization with software assurance. And then you can deploy those reports on premise using your desktop tool. The desktop tool is free.
It still needs a Power BI Pro license.
One Pro license, yes. To complete the rest of that requirement, you do need one Pro.
Or is it just one Pro, or whoever is collaborating, right?
Whoever's publishing content to there. So I always theorize that you have one developer that can do all the publishing of the reports. Now, your report server, you can see it. Anybody with a browser internally can go out to your SSRS server and see that content.
Maybe ActiveX directory limiting of who can see what? Because if it's like, here's the quarterly financials that we're going to report to Wall Street.
Yes, we're not going to show the CEO's salary and everybody else. Well, actually, that would be public, but we're not going to show all the employees' salaries and things. Sure. So domain authentication and reporting services. So your domain account or your domain groups can be set up to set folder level and data access level security within reporting services. So do you have, and maybe you don't know the answer to this question, do you have SQL Server in the organization that she's a part of?
Someone does.
Okay. So if you have that, pretty good chance you also have reporting services in there somewhere already. So it's a blended environment when you use Power BI. It's both the RS and the Power BI, both in the same world.
And we'll take this offline. I'll have her send you an email.
Sure, yep, cool. So we have security, we have the how to find the answer to my question, what are the best tips there? What else would you guys like to talk about? We've got 10 more months this year to fill with speakers. What would you guys like to hear about? Yes?
I know you're gonna talk about RLS, but, which is easier to do because there's a thing for it in the tool.
Mhm.
But sometimes I need to secure a column.
To secure a call?
Column, like
Oh,
labor
one,
cost column.
okay, so only part of the data.
Yeah, not the row, the column.
Okay, so column level security. Okay. Yes?
I think it'd be good too what I'd like to see is touch on some of the other unique visualizations versus just your standard bar charts and, line charts.
Okay. So these guys, all these new custom visualizations. Oh, I had it on page 2. So all this kind of stuff as it comes in. So do you use the out of the box, the ones that come with the desktop tool?
For the most part, yeah. I've played around with a couple of the ones that you can get that others have developed. So it'd be nice to see what else is, out there.
Do you work in the, or have you looked in the Office store?
Yeah, I've done it through where you can add in the custom visualizations that others have built, and you can do it directly through the desktop
Right through
version.
the desktop tool?
Yeah.
Okay. That I highly recommend is to search through the store.
Okay.
You will find blog sites, you will find other well-intending people who can create their own PBI viz files. The concern if you don't get them through Microsoft, even though we haven't developed all of them, third-party folks will develop them and submit them to our store. We will verify the security aspect of them. So in other words, I'm not writing a visual, posting it to some fishy website, and scraping all of your data and pumping it out. You don't have to worry about that kind of thing. So keep that in mind.
Even the ones through the store, though, you're agreeing that they can change and do all kinds of things when you agree to use the ones
Yes.
even in the store.
But there's some level of validation. It's, yes, they can make adjustments and changes. And the store might, it's not so much a warranty about their functionality. It might not give you the right calculation. It could potentially give you wrong information in that visual. And it might not support the version of the desktop that you have. It might not have forward compatibility, but it's not going to pump your data out. It's not going to be a secure.
And most of them say that they can change your report and view the data.
They can view the data?
Some of them say that.
Potentially usage data.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another possibility. I'm sorry, did you? No, I thought you had. Cool. All right, so we have some possibilities there. All right, so as you guys think of those, I'm sure as you go home tonight, you're gonna think back and say, I should have asked for that. Send me an email and let me know.
I have one more then, if you don't mind.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
Are there enough of us here that are in government to talk about how to work around things in the government cloud?
Yeah, who has a .gov or similar domain that you're working on your data with? But you said .com.
Well, .com, but it's government.
Okay, but it's government data that you're concerned with. Okay. Okay, so there's one solution we found already. Don't use the gov and you won't have the limitation.
We are in the Gov cloud.
I'm sure you've got, security around it. So a significant number of folks from the government sector. So yeah, specific to the limitations.
Like just auditing, you can't audit, you don't have the auditing capabilities you have on the other one. So how am I supposed to know who's doing what if I can't audit?
Okay. So within the service, now you don't use the service, or you have the on-premise?
No, we have the service.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's turned off for government. Like when you go into the BI admin portal and you get the auditing part, there's nothing there. There's a heading. That's all that's there.
So I will tell you from experience with other government customers that I've worked with, that they're working through some of the compliance so that you can still maintain your, like if you have O365 or your SharePoint Online, there are ways to secure those, but not ways to connect and still maintain that secured status.
Well,
that
even
you have,
the
you
out of the
might
box
have
app for Office 365 that shows adoption and all that stuff does not include Power BI.
Right.
But it's everything else in the Office 365 suite.
the rest of the offerings are there.
Yeah.
That is of utmost interest to
Yeah,
get that completed.
unless I'm missing something, even as the administrator, I can't see like all the scheduled refreshes.
Okay, so you need,
Different level, I mean,
that kind of
I
insight.
see everything.
I was gonna say, your tenant administrator may have some additional view in there that you might not have access
The tenant, like the whole tenant, so you have to have the whole, I have to be the whole Office 365 tenant administrator to see.
to. I know they have, I know they're gonna have some information, I'm not even sure if they do have that at that level. But there is something that your average, just the workspace.
No, I'm the Power BI administrator and SharePoint administrator and OneDrive administrator, and I can't see it.
Oh, and you can't see it? All right, so send me that question and form that, and we'll see if we can get you some assistance on that.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that in and of itself is an entire talk, but that might be just a 10-minute little segment, how we're able to work through that with you.
Okay.
Cool. All right, yes.
We use Q&A a lot
Mhm.
to build dashboards and stuff, and it's gotten better, but it's still a little clunky at times. And so if someone who has like an expert on Q&A, and especially like synonyms and some of the other things that are used with that, it'll be interesting to, and where it's going too, because I know it's kind of on the AI side of the.
Okay, so you're using what your users ask about their data as the method for generating not just really reports, but just dashboard tile.
Well, most of our users couldn't use Q&A because they're not
Savvy about the
savvy
data.
enough because of you have to really know the column, the field titles and everything, and they don't really know them because they're all in, because I'm not a real technical person, but they're in, you know, they have to know that salesperson was SLSP, you know, instead of,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying, is the abbreviation stuff. So we go ahead and pre-build them for them.
Mhm.
But it's still, it's got a lot of quirks to it, but it's gotten better. But I like this, you know, if someone could talk about where it's going and the improvements of it, that would be interesting.
So there is intelligence in there to pick up on those words and to distinguish between the values in the columns and the column names themselves and the grouping possibilities. One of the first things that I do, I lead different workshops on this, and we do proof of concept meetings with our customers. First thing I talk about when it comes to modeling is metadata. So giving your users nice column names, we can abandon all those crazy things that database developers have put together for column names and table names and rename all of that stuff as we're importing the data. So that's a possibility, but that being the case, sometimes people call these jeans, sometimes they're slacks, sometimes they're pants. We still have to accommodate for those possibilities where different organizations use different terms. And that's where you're right to notice the synonyms coming in. Those are the main ones. Also, have you run the analytics on your data set? So anytime do you publish to the service? Yes, you use Q&A. I forgot. I knew the answer to that. Okay. So you publish to the service. Have you ever done the analytics option for your data set to allow Power BI to run across your data set and see what it can find?
Yes.
Okay. And in the output of that, you probably saw some of those odd or obscurely named columns and things referenced, right? Mm-hmm. Those are really good opportunities, those ones in particular, to get shifted over so that the analytics engine, when it comes up with, chances are that's what your users are going to be looking for too. But that's another great topic that we could go into more depth on as well. Great. All right. So, you guys ready to hear about row level security? All right, so I have, for our target time, about 45 minutes to get through this. It usually doesn't take that long because this presentation is really just something I show as a demo. So let me open up the other Power BI file that I have for this evening. Close my query editor here. All right, let's open. row level security, version 2. So who has applied row level security on their Power BI reports? A couple of folks. Who knows why you would want to use row level security on your reports?
So you can use one report and serve a bunch of different people.
Lots of different folks, sure. Okay. Not necessarily everybody that can see the same. So it's not the same as putting a slicer on your report and just saying, I trust you to pick your name off of this list to only look at your data. I'm going to enforce that you're only able to see certain parts of the data. So I've constructed this Power BI file off of several different data sets, sort of the greatest hits of Microsoft's hypothetical companies or sample data sets. We have, the big ones are here, AdventureWorks, Contoso, and Tailspin Toys, okay? And I've pretended that me and several of my colleagues need to look at some data across our customers. And we're going to be another hypothetical company, or we're actually going to be a real company called Microsoft, and maybe we want to report on these other companies, AdventureWorks and Contoso. But the caveat is that I only have access to the customers that I'm responsible for, and my coworkers are responsible to have access to the other companies that they have access to. Okay, so not each one of us can see all of the data. No one person can see the entire data set. We can only see the parts that apply to us. And instead of writing several different Power BI reports, or instead of creating several different workspaces and structuring the data source connections to only pick out those ones that I need to work on, and then as changes come in, I would have to make the changes and then deploy them out to all those different areas. I've decided to use row level security and write the report one single time and have only one copy, and then allow the Power BI service to interrogate who the requester of the report is. So when you go out to the service, you ask for the report, Power BI says, whoa, 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 this is a secured report. I need to know who you are first. It does all of this in the background for free. It's all part of the request. And then once it figures out who I am, it says, first of all, can I see any data? And then if I pass that test, it'll say, which data do I have access to? So there's a little bit of prep with this. As with most reporting tasks, it starts at the data model level. And I'm going to show you the relationships view here so that you can understand what it is we're trying to accomplish. This table here, I would like for you to ignore the sales table. I set this up, this demo, for a separate presentation. And for as far as our row level security is concerned, I would like you to focus on the sale table without the S at the end. Okay? So we have some transactional data. We have all of our customers are represented in any one of the rows in this table here. So we have Contoso on one level, we have AdventureWorks on the next row, and so on. Okay? I was also tasked for this to come up with our custom values to be presented for each one of our customers on a regional basis. So we have a product table that we have sold to Contoso and AdventureWorks and all these guys, our products, my company's products. And we have descriptions of each one of those products listed here as well. So for some of our customers, some are located in Germany, and I think some I put in a Spanish-speaking country, and some here in the United States. So we have different languages, and we have different conversion rates for different currencies. So the products are expressed in euros and, oh, I forgot, pounds and dollars, okay? And they speak English and German and Spanish, okay? So that's another wrinkle to this data set that I've added in for these products. Up at the top there, you see the accounts table. The accounts represent each one of those companies, AdventureWorks, Contoso, and so on. From the accounts table, this is where the row level security is going to first be applied. are account users, okay? So myself and my other coworkers are mapped in a table from our users to our account users to our accounts. Now the reason I have those two steps in here, user and account user, is to support, of course they had to make another wrinkle in there, the possibility that any given user might have multiple customers, multiple accounts that they're reporting to. So I needed to map for that one-to-many possibility. If I had said each individual user could only map to one account, I would have skipped this intermediary table here and just tied directly from user up to account. So the account table relates to my sales transactions here, okay? So every one of those companies maps directly to the ID in this table. And the idea here is that this user, whoever that is, if I can figure out who that person is, and if I can apply this security filtering to that table, then I, through my account, can filter what those users see in the sales table, okay? Now, as a matter of convenience, I've hidden, you can tell several of these tables in the middle are hidden from my users. Don't think of that as part of the security. That's just convenience for development. That does not protect against anything. Anyone who could open up this file could see all of that stuff if they wanted to. They could turn it on and off. That's just a matter of convenience. It has nothing to do with the security aspect here. So now to show you how this works, I'm going to give you a little insight into the data that is in those tables. So the first one I'm going to show you is the sale table. And notice that the sale table is very simple. It has just a handful of transactions. In fact, I manually entered all of these into a spreadsheet just for demonstration purposes, okay? So we've mapped the account, we've mapped a calculation on the base cost over here. So we've applied a calculation to determine whether the account is in pounds or in euros or in dollars. We also mapped and replicated over the language that the folks in each one of those companies speaks. And then we have the product name. And this is actually calculated as well. The product name is really stored in a language type table where we do our conversions. And of course, we have the account that it's associated with. So AdventureWorks and Kitoso and Tailspin Toys are all represented. So that's our mixed data. Some of that I'm supposed to see as a report viewer, some of it I'm not, okay? So we need to figure out how to filter this to show only the parts that are relevant. The next table I'm going to show you is the user table. This is just a list of everyone that is going to be using this report and the identity. Now, for row-level security to be applied, we have two possibilities. The first possibility is domain authentication. So in other words, the name of your AD domain and then your login credentials, like what you would probably use at work. That would be evaluated for an on-premise reporting services. If anyone's ever used user ID in an SSRS report, you're familiar with what that account looks like. The other possibility is if we deploy to the Power BI service, there your identity is your email address. And because ultimately that's where I was going to publish this to for the demonstration, that's why for my users, you'll see off to the left there in the first column, their email address. Then we have account user. I'm sorry, did you have a question, Chris?
Can we use Azure AD or?
Yes, and Azure AD will resolve
Okay.
to the email account associated with that.
Okay.
And I'll go into a little bit more depth once we get into the place where I publish it out and show it in action. Okay. The user and account table is basically a crosswalk table between my accounts and all of the users that can see them. Because we could have a multiple scenario, notice in here that my name appears twice, W.E. Spring. I am both assigned to account 1 and account 2, but other members are only assigned to one account, okay? So that handles that multiple accounts question, and that's the whole purpose of this table. The accounts, as you might suspect, each one of those representative companies, they each just have their own ID listed in there. So we map that back to our sales table, and we've got all of the underpinnings to support our row level security. I'm only going to be able to see those accounts that have number 1, or did I say number 2 or number 1? Let me see my mappings again, I forget. I only get account number 1 and account number 2 for my WE Spring. Okay, so let's look at what those accounts will be. I should only see account 1 and 2, Contoso and AdventureWorks, right? But other folks, if they had different mappings in that account table, they would be able to see the ones that correspond with their name. So as far as the data goes, does that make sense to everyone? That in order to apply row level security, we have to have a tie with the joins of our tables between the identities for the accounts, the users that use it, and then of course the transactional level.
I don't do any of that.
You don't do any of that?
No, I just use the role and create a group and put the restriction on it.
Oh, and you have analysis, you're using AS or you're using, what is your mapping to your data? Do you have the IDs in your transactional data?
No. So all I did was I went on the data tab to modeling, manage roles, create a role that was like project management and said they only get this, and then just put people in that role. I didn't do anything in modeling like
in your data. So that role, what does that role map to in your data? What, like which?
It's just a restriction on a column. So,
Okay.
So it just says they can get where the department equals IT PMO.
Okay, an IT PMO, you said?
Mhm.
Okay, and that's one of your roles?
No, it's mapping to the department, right?
Yeah, like I just went into roles and said, this is the PMO group, and wrote a DAX expression that said
Okay.
where this equals that, and that's it. So I didn't do any of the.
So how did you map to the users who are looking at the report? Like, what's the tie-in
By
to the user?
email?
Yeah, on the data set itself, on the cloud server,
Mhm.
you say this person is in that group.
In that group, okay. Okay, so you've completely managed it within the data and within the security of the service. within
Yeah,
the Power
not,
BI service.
yeah, I didn't do anything with like having a table of accounts and all that stuff.
Okay.
It was,
So your role, but the role ultimately has to map into that column, like you said.
you just write the DAX expression, yeah.
So you can do that. That's one way if your data aligns nicely for that. Not all organizations have that, so that's why I wanted to show the possibility of
Is it
aligning.
less efficient, like, is it more efficient to use what's built into the tool or to do what you did with the?
Well, there's I'm going to use part of what's in the tool too.
I know, but I mean, everything you did before that, is it more efficient to do it that way or more efficient to just use the?
The answer is how much development control do you have over your data source, your source data? You do?
Yeah, the end
Okay,
right
so
there.
you can lay it out any way you like.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's part of the equation.
Okay,
Do you have control of your data set?
yeah,
Sometimes you can only evaluate at the group level, like what you're suggesting, and those groups are mapped. I didn't have that type of data set, and I wanted to use really generic terms that pretty much anyone could see.
Yeah.
And show how that you might be able to.
yeah, just
lay
didn't know if one was better than the other.
Okay, so let's take a look at what happens when I run this report. Right now, we're in report view, and you'll notice in the upper left-hand corner here, you see my domain login. Okay, that's simply an output of whoever ran this report. What is their user ID, right? And because I'm on premise now with the desktop tool, it reports my domain authentication. You'll see in a moment when we take a look at this in the Power BI service that it will actually, me running it again, it will revert to my email address of wespring@microsoft.com. Okay, so keep an eye on that, but realize that this value would never return anything in my data set. So to simulate this security as a developer and see how all this works, I have to switch over and I have to show my my role, and impersonate one of the folks who might be running this, whose email address would map to my data set, okay? So the way we do that, we can do a view as, and we can run this as one of those other members. So even for me to try this as myself, I have to pretend I'm someone else. I have to pretend I'm WeSpring@Microsoft.com because my natural one with North America will not evaluate to anything in my data. Before I did that though, I needed to create that mapping between my data set and whatever value is found here. So in the roles, notice I have a filter created on the users table. So for my role, that's the username. As I execute this report, whenever that equals what you find in the users table under ID, then that will allow that security connection based on that. And then it will translate through, because I've created the relationships in such a fashion to enforce security across the relationships. That's going to follow through with the rest of my tables. Okay, so this is the part that Power BI returns to me as a developer. That's who ran this report. This is my table and my row of data, and that's the ID that I'm going to be matching those two up. So right now, username's reporting North America. In my table, I've got WE Spring. So the way I test this, because I can't pretend to be somebody I'm not to my own machine, is to do a view as. So here's my role, and I am going to pretend to be me. So I'm going to enter my own email address. Okay. And if I click OK, notice I get this little warning at the top telling me, hey, you're a developer. You're running this as somebody else. This isn't your natural state here. Notice that that flips over to what I will experience in the Power BI service, which is my email address. And now, notice that I don't get all the different customers. I only get those first two customers that I'm supposed to, AdventureWorks and Contoso. And Tailspin Toys, I can't even see that they exist, right? If I was to run this as someone else, in this, I found the best is to stop that before I switch over to someone else. Flip this over to other user. There we go. Now we're going to run it as, oh, sorry about that. I run it as him. He only had access to Tailspin Toys, and there's his view of it. Okay. So that's the basics of developing row-level security from the desktop. But in practice, though, if you use a Power BI file, you have access to that data set anyway. Okay, so as we stop this, remember, even though I'm Wes, and even if I had done my domain authentication, just because I can source that data, Power BI does not give me the illusion of security by masking this when I'm in the development view. So anybody who has a Power BI file that you've created like this, realize row-level security will not apply to that file. They can get to the PBIX file, assume that they see everything. And Power BI won't apply that for you or make you think something different. You'll be able to see it immediately. But of course, we do this to publish out to our users and to show them in either the service or in reporting services. So let me go back to Power BI site. Oh, no typing. There we go. And I'll show you this in action. Good. Loading. Looks like it's loading. So if I sign in, and let's take a quick look. Oh, it's loading. few of these set up. Okay, so now I'm in the Power BI service. I had deployed this ahead of time, and notice now that, of course, out here on the web, I get my email accounts. So who can tell me what I'm going to see if I scroll down here?
Everything.
I'm going to see everything. Why? Row level security is not working.
For the administrator.
Exactly. So because I am editor on the workspace where this was deployed, and I could go see the data set for myself, even though this is properly resolving now to my data, I still can see all of the different companies. I don't just get my first two. That's because I am the editor on this workspace and I own this data set. Okay? So keep in mind that your users can only be viewing these reports if you want the row level security to be applied.
So if you publish it as an app, it's applied.
It would be applied at that level. And then if I were viewing it, if I weren't the owner.
Even if you're the owner, does it not do it if it's an app?
Within the app, so do you have access to the data set?
Not in an app, right?
So I haven't tried row level security in an app yet, so I'll verify that for you. But as long as you aren't the editor or you don't have edit capabilities, because if you think about it, you could actually just download the PBIX file right now if you're the editor of that. On the other hand, if you're just viewing the report, you would only be able to see the results. Okay, so kind of a lackluster finish. It doesn't even actually do what I was going to show you. When I set this demonstration up, some of my teammates were actually in the room, and I had them present their view of it, where I made them not the administrator of it. But you can imagine here, now that we've resolved this, if I were just the viewer, you would only be able to see AdventureWorks and Contoso. So do you guys see a use for that? Yes.
No, I have a question. It's not really the report. You just log in Microsoft. The Power BI is cloud or just learning? Because you listed earlier you have a learning link. Is it a part
Yes.
of the learning link?
So
The service is run by Microsoft.
yes. So if you notice at the top there, we've got PowerBI.com.
Right.
So we're in a browser. If you go out to this site and you do not have a subscription to the service, have you ever logged into
No.
PowerBI.com? Okay. So the first time you go, it will give you that invitation at the top that'll say sign in on the page. Okay. If you haven't signed in yet, in the top navigation on the browser there, you will see a section that will say learn. And there will be a section under there for documentation, for forums, for education. There's actually videos listed. There's a lot of information in there. Also on the site, this is the public version, or I should say the published version of your reports in the Power BI service. So I took that desktop file that I created, I'm showing you the development part of that, and then I clicked publish, and it published it out to this website, and in that process, it took both the data set and the report definition together and landed it out here in the service. And then once I logged in to the service with my same credentials that I use here at Microsoft, once I was logged in, then I was able to do all of the rest of the tasks. So maybe my role maybe is just to look at reports, okay? In this case, I am actually a developer and a content provider, so I'm able to publish reports out there, but sometimes our users can only go there to see their reports. They wouldn't have the file that we create in the desktop. So that link that I showed you earlier, that's a great place to start, and it is the same website. It's just a different look before you log in.
Thanks.
Sure. So, who thinks they could use row level security if they wanted to? Okay. You might be sending a little bit to my email address. A couple questions.
So when you set it up, we do it like you do it. We create roles
Yep.
in the service, and
Yep.
then in the desktop, and then go into the service and assign people to those roles.
To those roles. Okay. So do you have, so the filter application there would be just a little different. Let's take a look at that. So I did a direct correlation between my user table and who I resolved that particular name to, okay? But like you suggested, you can have a role assigned to it. So we start out in the service and we create a group out there, which is a collection of folks we want to have resolved to one of our roles, right? And then how do you apply the filtering here, how do you apply your role filtering?
So like in the use cases, these are sales teams you work with. Right?
Okay, that's, yeah.
Okay, and so you've got managers and you have sales reps.
Mhm.
And the managers, you won't be able to see across the entire company, but the sales reps, you only let them see their stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and so we, and sometimes I've got different customers, some of them want to see it by their branch or some of them by their region or whatever. But we create a role by whatever, there's always a column of some sort, or, rows of saying, I belong to this branch, or I belong to this region. Or if it's just to the sales rep, you could just say a sales rep. So you create one just for the sales rep. And obviously you have to create a role for each one of those.
Right.
But what we also found is that then you got to create a role that says I can see everything.
Right.
Because otherwise, when you go and load it, then the ones that don't have a role don't
See
see
nothing.
anything.
They see nothing, right?
So I just create a wall that just has nothing in the DAX expression and put them in that group.
Right, but then you have, for each person, you have to put them in a role, right?
But if you did it his way, you wouldn't have to.
That's what I was saying, but I'm guessing that's what my question is, do it your way, can we?
I like this idea. And this is where I lean, because I come from the SQL development side. I would rather manage things in data. So oftentimes my applications have that name in it, right? So if I look back at my users table, my application has somewhere in there a list of the application users that map to what I can discover about them when they go to run the report in the service, which is their email address. I can map that also to their domain credentials. We can access Active Directory as a data source in Power BI. And we could join those things together based on security groups or distribution lists. Okay, so do you use the service? When you do you replicate your on-premise Active Directory to Azure? Okay, so if you don't do that, okay, you have
I work with different companies, but almost all of them just use Power BI, and that's the only Microsoft they have. They don't have Office 365 or anything else.
Okay.
It's only Power BI.
But are they using the desktop tool or are they open?
We do the desktop part and publish it, and then the users use it.
Okay, so how do they authenticate to the Power BI service?
They log in with their login.
So they do have domain.
They have it.
Domain it.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
So
each user has a pro license.
Okay. So as they access the service, you don't have the advantage of having a on-premise distribution list or security group replicated out to the service. So you have to define each one of those groups in the service to map to the roles, and then the roles, down to your application data. So it all depends on the level at which your users will come in. So do I know their department? That's all I know about them. Then I can do things abstract a little bit higher level. If I know their user address, though, I can get more granular down to every single individual user has a separate look. Okay, so what if I wanted to have, like you were saying, a departmental view, or maybe I would say my customers could come in. Maybe I'm exposing this as a service to my customers. I could say, if you're a member of Contoso, and I don't want to interrogate every person in Contoso, I could just map that role directly to the word Contoso. I wouldn't need to map Wes to Contoso and then Contoso to my data, I could just go directly against my transaction sales table and say, this person is in role Contoso, so if their ID is 1, they've got it. My scenario also had the wrinkle, that complexity of what if one user has access to multiple accounts, and then different folks span different combinations of customers. That was something else I was trying to show that's possible. Many times, though, it's just a department, and you can sort of abstract those levels to that group. Now, you mentioned departments and regions separately, so you have to account for that based on the user's role. One's at one level of granularity, another's at a different. I'm guessing a region might have multiple customers. So do you have folks that span those two types of roles, like the more?
Right now, it's just been 2 levels. Either I see everything, or I've got one level of restriction, basically. So
Okay.
far.
But the folks.
None of them have crossed over into other areas yet.
So I can be both a regional person and, okay. That would make it a little bit more complicated. But you have the advantage, of course, of being able to set up your own groups on the service, as well as your data aligns nicely with those groupings. Cool. All right, guys. Well, I know it's 8 o'clock, or it's very close to 8 o'clock. I would like to thank you guys all for coming. First of all, I appreciate it. We're very encouraged by the number of folks who made it out. Also, please reach out to us. Let us know your suggestions, and definitely let us know if you're going to be able to make it next month. We look forward to seeing you. If you had a nice time tonight, and you have, excuse me, I'm fighting something here. You have other folks who you are here to represent. Hopefully we'll speak well of it and be able to help them as well in the future, and encourage you to bring your other coworkers and friends to join us for March. So in the interest of wrapping up on time, we'll cut off the questions for now. I'll be happy to stick around a little bit longer after. And if you think of these questions on your ride home, be sure to send me an email. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. My recording lasted the whole